I'm a face-swapping specialist. I can change anyone's face into whatever look they want. I've done face swaps for loads of people, but a stunningly beautiful woman showed up today. The Marchioness of Yong'an, who enjoys all wealth and power above everyone else. The news that the Marquis of Yong'an would take a secondary wife had spread in the capital for 3 days. When the Marchioness of Yong'an walked into my small shop, I heard this Dian Zhuanglu can do face swaps for people. Would you take my order, shopkeeper? I looked at the Marchioness's gorgeous flower-like face and smiled softly. The rule of Dian Zhuanglu is, I don't charge any fee for face swaps for beautiful women, but the face you take off has to stay here for my use. The Marchioness agreed in a soft voice. I took a wiggling goo worm out of the box. I confirmed with the Marchioness of Yong'an one last time. This face bone swap procedure can only be used once per person in a lifetime. Once your face is altered, you can never change it back. The Marchioness spoke in a firm tone. Do it, I won't regret it. I shook a sharp, thin needle out of my sleeve. I made a small cut under the Marchioness's ear. The goo worm in my hand reacted as soon as it smelled blood. It crawled through the cut into the Marchioness's fair, smooth skin. Her crow feather-like eyelashes trembled slightly. Her pale red lips were pressed tightly together. I can never help feeling pity for beautiful women, so I asked her I have some special pain relief medicine. It's free, I can give you some with no charge. Back when the Marchioness first came to me and asked for a face swap, I already made it clear to her how painful the process would be. The whole face swap takes 7 days in total. For the first 5 days, the face swap bone will drill into her skin, slowly separating the skin from flesh and bone from the inside. That's the first round of pain. For the last 2 days, the original face skin will fall off completely. When the new skin is applied, the face swap bone will secrete mucus, which corrodes any bone that doesn't fit properly. Back then, the Marchioness was so scared she bit her lip till it broke, but now she flatly refused my offer of help. Her voice was slightly trembling. I need to remember this pain properly. Only when the pain is bad enough will I never think about turning back. How could anyone bear to swap out such a breathtakingly beautiful face? To escape, to get freedom? Most guests who come to Dian Zhuanglu for face swaps do it to run away from enemies or to get a more attractive look. Only the Marchioness made me curious. What could make a privileged, high-born Marchioness willing to endure unbearable pain ordinary people can't stand, just to get rid of the lack of freedom she has? What exactly is it? Since I needed to monitor the GU worm's condition at all times, I pretended to be the Marchioness's personal maid and entered the Marquis's manor. The Marchioness couldn't stay outside for long, so I pretended to be her newly bought maid and moved into the manor. I didn't expect to run into a huge coincidence at the manor. The secondary wife the Marquis of Yong'an was planning to marry, who was the Marchioness's long-lost biological sister that was just found, was a customer who had gotten a face swap from me before. She stole the identity of the person whose face she swapped to. When she was getting ready to go to bed one night, the Marquis of Yong'an showed up. There's always been a popular rumor in the capital that the Marquis of Yong'an is a rare, affectionate nobleman, deeply devoted to his wife only, and never lets other women get close to him. I stood by waiting, glancing at this so-called affectionate man who didn't care about his first wife's reputation at all, and was about to take a secondary wife. He had high brows and deep-set eyes, a high nose bridge and thin, slightly drooping lips. He did have a handsome face, but his whole aura was way too cold and stern, making him look cold and heartless. His voice was even ice-cold. How much longer are you gonna throw a fit at me? Ninger and I were engaged originally. Out of respect for the fact we grew up together, I didn't demote you from wife to concubine, and instead asked Ninger to be my secondary wife, even though it's unfair to her. You're still not satisfied with that? She's your own biological sister. You already stole her place as the official wife. What more do you have to argue with her about? The Marchioness bit her red lips softly. No anger on her face, only disappointment and sadness. Don't you forget, you were the one who said you liked me back then. You begged both our parents to let me marry you in my sister's place to fulfill the engagement. If you think the official wife position should be hers, you can just divorce me outright. I never wanted to fight with her over anything. The Marquis of Yong'an froze slightly. His tone softened a little. Don't deliberately say hurtful things to provoke me. Your parents don't treat you well. Where would you go if you leave me? Besides, I can't bear to treat you that way either. Marrying Ninger into the manor is just to compensate for all the suffering she went through when she was missing all these years. It won't affect the relationship between us at all. The Marquis Manor will always be your home. I will always be your husband. These two things will never change. He said these sweet words in a soft voice and reached out to hug the Marchioness. The Marchioness lowered her eyes, completely still, like a wooden statue in his arms. Didn't give any response at all. The Marquis of Yongan coaxed her a couple more times. Suddenly, a maid's voice came from outside the door. Marquis, our young lady is having a nightmare. She's been crying and calling your name the whole time. Please come check on our young lady. The moment the Marquis of Yongan heard this, he didn't hesitate even for a second. He immediately let go of the madam. Ninger is not like you. You were raised as a precious noble daughter and pampered your whole life. She was stranded outside for many years. She's timid and cowardly by nature. I'll go check on her. I'll be back soon. After the madam nodded, he didn't even glance back and strode away quickly. The words the madam mumbled to herself, only I, who was standing right next to her, heard them. When did I ever grow up without being tensed and scared all the time? But no one ever felt bad for me. The Marquis of Yongan didn't come back that night. Starting from the next day, as more and more goo worms separated from her skin and flesh, the madam felt more and more unbearable pain. But she always acted like she couldn't feel any pain at all. Her face was completely calm. It was a deathly, hollow, calm with barely any spark of life in her. A maid came in from outside and announced to the madam, Master Ye and old Madam Ye have arrived. The Marquis asks you to meet them in the main hall. I held the madam's hand to support her and followed her to the main hall. The moment we stepped inside, two people over 50 glared angrily at us. Old Madam Ye spoke first. Shunshu. I heard Ninger had a nightmare last night. We let Ninger move into the Marquis's manor early. Wasn't that for you to help nurse her back to health? And you, as her older sister, how on earth did you take care of your little sister? Master Ye chimed in right after. Didn't you study medicine under the medical sage? Why has your little sister been living here so long? And you still haven't cured her illness? The madam said helplessly, Father, Mother, have you forgotten? Last time I made Ninger a calming and chi-boosting soup. She refused to drink it and screamed that I was trying to poison her. The Marquis called me a poisonous woman because of that and locked me up as punishment. You both even came over and scolded me for a whole day. None of you believed me. How dare I try to treat her again? As soon as she said that, Master Ye and old Madam Ye were both struck speechless for a moment. Old Madam Ye huffed coldly and said, I think you just hate that Ninger came back to take your place as the Marquis's wife. That's why you deliberately watch her suffer and do nothing to help. Don't you forget? You took this position that originally belonged to her, so you should return it to her. I saw tears glistening in the madam's eyes. Her hands were shaking. She pointed at the two of them and said, You heard Ninger say she loves the Marquis, so you tricked me into bringing the Marquis home. You even drugged him to create a scene that would force the Marquis to marry Ninger. That caused me to have a miscarriage. I went through the agony of losing my child. All this happened just because you thought I took Ninger's rightful place. Is that so? Old Madam Ye asked back. Aren't I right? If you hadn't taken the husband that rightfully belonged to Ninger, and after she came back, you firmly refused to let her marry into the Marquis's manor. She lost her appetite over it and cried all day long at home. Your father and I wouldn't have had to take such extreme measures. As for the child you were carrying, you just didn't have the good fortune to keep it. And you weren't capable enough to keep it either. The madam clenched her fists tightly. She asked with red, teary eyes. I clearly said I would voluntarily ask for a divorce and give the position of the official wife to Ninger. Why didn't you agree to that? Master Ye flicked his sleeve angrily and scolded, A married daughter being sent back by her husband's family is such a humiliating scandal that everyone will laugh at. You don't care about your reputation, but your mother, your sister, and I do. These words were almost an explicit insult to the madam, saying she had no shame. The madam couldn't help but stagger a little. I quickly held her up to steady her. The Marquis of Yongan, who had arrived late, happened to hear this last sentence. Looking at the madam's pale, fragile face, a flash of pity crossed his eyes. He comforted her. Since I married you, I never thought about divorcing you. You will be my wife for the rest of your life. The reason I care for Ninger so much is also because she is your biological younger sister. So my love for you extends to her as well. Old Madame Ye scolded the madam. You, as the older sister, neglect your duties, making the Marquise take care of your sister for you. You don't even feel grateful to him for that. You even dare to throw a fit at her over this? How can you be so ignorant and unreasonable? We were wrong to agree to marry off such a jealous, unvirtuous daughter like you into the Marquis' manor back then. We are the ones who owe him an apology for that. Madame Huaishu closed her eyes briefly, as if she was totally grossed out by them, turned around and started retching. Seeing this, the Marquis of Yonggan's face fell, pushed me aside and held Madame by the waist himself. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Why didn't you tell me earlier? If I'd known, I never would have made you come out to greet your parents. After saying that, he lifted Madame up in his arms and hurried back to the inner courtyard, and even remembered to tell me to fetch the doctor. Master Ye and old Madame Ye left with dark looks on their faces. The Marquis of Yong'an stayed with the doctor the whole time, while he took Madame's pulse. He only left after hearing Madame was fine. It wasn't until everyone else left the room that I got to ask the question I'd been wondering about. Were those two old people your parents just now? Madame's eyes dimmed and nodded slightly. I was shocked. Biological? The way those two were insulting her, Madame didn't look like their daughter at all. She looked more like their enemy. Madame let out a bitter laugh. I wish I wasn't related to them by blood. Not long after, another guest came to the room. Following the servant girl's announcement, a beauty in a red dress walked into the bedroom, her voice soft and alluring. I heard you were sick, sister. So I came to see you. This must be Madame's biological little sister, who got lost as a kid and was found only after she grew up. I looked up, and my pupils shrank suddenly. This person was a customer who had visited the Jiangnan branch of my Dianzhuang studio. The reason I still remember her is because the face this customer wanted to change into was so stunningly beautiful. I happened to be traveling in Jiangnan at the time. I was worried my staff wouldn't do a good enough job and ruin that beautiful face. So I did the procedure myself. I searched my memory for info about the person in front of me. She used to be the madam of Huayue brothel, 32 years old already. She brought a dead beauty who had just passed away, and whose body was still warm. Came to us with all her savings to buy a face-changing service from Dianzhuang Studio. The face she got was exactly the face of the 17-year-old beauty in front of me right now. I guess I stared at her for too long. The beauty glanced at me out of the corner of her eye. I smiled politely, then lowered my head. I snuck into the Marquise's manor with a disguised face, so the person in front of me didn't recognize me. Besides, Dianzhuang Studio only takes orders. We never ask about our customers' backgrounds. Even if I ran into her by chance today, to protect customer privacy, I would never tell anyone a single thing about it. But I'm a total gossip by nature. I'm really curious about the story between this face-changed ex-madam and Madame's family. She's 32 years old. There's no way that she's the younger sister of 20-year-old Madame. She's more like stealing the identity of the dead girl whose face she took. Madame wasn't warm to this so-called little sister at all. I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. You can leave now. I want to take an afternoon nap. Hearing this, the woman's eyes flickered, and she chuckled softly. Ha ha ha, I know you don't like seeing me, sister. I'll leave the Marquis to you tonight. Let him take care of you. You need to take good care of yourself. The Marquis and I are getting married in half a month. I'll need you to handle all the preparations. These words sounded nice, but were obviously meant to show off. Madame let out a cold laugh after hearing that, and didn't bother to respond. Sure enough, the Marquis of Yong'an came over and sat chatting with Madame. The Marquis said, "When I saw you bend over to retch earlier today, I thought you were pregnant again. With my child. I went to the palace to get the imperial physician to make you a conditioning prescription. Even after Ninger marries the only legitimate heir of this manor will be born to you, no one else." He looked so affectionate and gentle. It seems the folk rumor that the Marquis loves his first wife deeply isn't entirely fake. He does love her. But his love is split in two now. But his words made Madame's face turn cold. You already killed our child. Have you forgotten? The Marquis froze for a second, looking annoyed. And guilty at the same time. You're still blaming me? If your parents hadn't set me up, I never would have slept with Ninger. It was your father who made you so angry that you miscarried. Your parents don't love you. I'm the only one who loves and cares about you. Madame stood up and smashed the teacup on the table. She roared, Get out! I don't want to see you right now. And I don't want to hear any of your disgusting crap. Marquis of Yong'an had his pride bruised. His face immediately darkened. His tone turned icy cold. Looks like I've been too nice to you all these years. That's why you're acting so ungrateful. Ninger is scared of the dark. He cried and begged me not to leave. But I was worried about your health. I even forced myself to leave him alone behind. Yet I don't even get a single nice look from you. He flicked his sleeve and left. The anger on Madame's face faded away. She went back to her usual calm, emotionless look. That night, faint sobs could be heard from the bedroom the whole time. Madame was nowhere near as calm as she looked on the surface. After Marquis of Yong'an left in a rage, he didn't come back for 3 whole days. The illusion mask bone on Madame's face had already loosened most of her facial skin. The flesh underneath was being nourished by bone threads. To keep it fresh, Madame had been enduring the severe pain of skin separating from flesh this whole time. Today the pain finally made her eyes red. She showed her vulnerable side in front of me for the first time. She called me in a trembling voice. Miss Bai, the pain on my face is just too hard to bear. Accompany me for a walk in the garden, to take my mind off it, okay? The rockeries in the Marquis' mansion are tall and wide, with very unique landscape designs. I walked Madame closer to them. When we heard women talking around the corner, Juaner, why are your eye bags even darker today? The other woman replied gloomily. I've been on night duty these past few days. The Marquis and Miss Ye stay up playing till midnight every night. They don't call for water to wash up. So I don't dare to fall asleep. I have to get up again before dawn to do chores. No wonder my eye bags are dark. The other person lowered her voice even more. Miss Ye has really got the Marquis wrapped around her finger. Ever since she moved into the mansion, the Marquis hasn't gone to Madame's room at all. Last time I was on night duty, the Marquis didn't close the window. I heard him praise Miss Ye for her fair, fragrant skin. And born a seductress, the maid said. Their voices got lower and lower, until we couldn't hear them anymore. Madame's hand on my arm tightened suddenly. I turned to look at her. Her eyes were filled with tears. She shook her head slightly at me. I stayed quiet as we had a tacit understanding, and helped her walk the other way. We went back to the inner courtyard. Only then did I let go of Madame's arm, to see what expression she had after being quiet the whole walk. One look, and I saw tears silently rolling down Madame's face. She bit her lip so hard that it started to bleed. Hearing that the husband you loved for years was intimate with another woman, no one would be able to stay unaffected by that, right? I stood there quietly, waiting for Madame to finish crying. Then I pulled out a handkerchief and handed it to her. As Madame wiped her tears, she forced a small smile. Turns out when your heart hurts enough, that forced smile looks more hopeless than crying. You don't even feel the physical pain anymore. I couldn't bear to see her like that, so I covered her teary eyes and said softly, Don't force yourself to smile when you're sad. I think I kind of understand now why Madame would rather endure the pain of face swapping to escape. Her own parents scheme against her. The husband she loves betrays her. Yet she's forced to stay here and put up with all of it. If she doesn't find a way to leave, every single day and night in the future will be filled with unbearable, heart-wrenching pain. Isn't that way more painful than swapping faces? Time flew by and soon it was. The 5th day, the day for the face swap. I asked Madame if she had any desired look. In the 1,000 Faces Hall of Dianzhuang Tower are all kinds of human faces collected by generations of tower masters over the years. Madame shook her head in confusion. When I was little, to please my parents, I always acted like a filial and respectful daughter. After I got married, to keep my husband's love, I was always gentle and considerate. It feels like I've never thought about what kind of person I want to be myself. For people in my line of work, The biggest taboo is getting emotionally attached to clients. Probably because Madam is really just too beautiful. Seeing such a beautiful person heartbroken, I can't help but feel bad for her all the time. She couldn't make up her mind, so I made the decision for her. I had a good friend when I was little. When she was 18, she asked me to swap her face to a man's face. Then she went to the battlefield to avenge her father, and never came back. Today I'll take her face out and put it on for you. At the same time, I want to ask you to go to Huaicheng, Jiangnan, and visit my friend's mother for me. As a reward, I will take full charge of arranging your escape from the Marquise's mansion. After Madame nodded in agreement, I left the mansion to return to Dianzhuang Pavilion to get the Bingxia material for the face swap. I hurried back to the Marquise's mansion with the box, only to find Marquise of Yong'an, who I hadn't seen for days, had come again. The maids were all driven out. They stood by the door staring at each other. I heard the sound of porcelain shattering inside the room. Then came the madam's angry, questioning voice. You forced me to accept you taking a second wife. I put up with it, but you want me to arrange your wedding myself. You want me to watch you marry another woman right in front of me. Weixu, how can you be so cruel to me? You swore in front of the god of marriage that you'd love me wholeheartedly for life. Was that all a lie? You never loved me at all. Marquise Yong'an tried to soothe her in a low voice. How could I not love you? You're the first woman I ever fell for when I hit puberty. Even now that I have Ninger, you're still the person I love most in my heart. But as the head mistress of this manor, if you try to avoid certain things, people will gossip and speak ill of you. You don't have to do too much for the wedding. You just need to check over the betrothal gifts, confirm the gift list, and send invitations to all the families, and show up for the tea ceremony on the wedding day. This disgusting man was telling the madam he loved her, while hurting her at the exact same time, probably because she was leaving soon. The madam stopped holding herself back anymore. I heard a loud, crisp slap sound. Then the madam roared, Chu Huaishu, you're heartless and shameless. Get out! I will never arrange the wedding for you and Ye Guining. If you're not happy with that, just write a divorce letter and kick me out of this manor. There was a long, dead silence. Then Marquis Yong'an snarled through gritted teeth, You jealous shrew! Since you don't want the face I'm giving you, then after Ninger and I get married, you'll move out of the main courtyard and let Ninger live here. Pack up your things. I'll have people send you to the side courtyard tomorrow. Of course I won't divorce you. Even if you die, you have to die in my manor. The door was flung open violently. Marquis Yong'an stormed out in a rage. I quickly stepped aside to make way. I had nowhere to hide the icebox in my hand, which was slowly letting off white steam. Marquis Yong'an paused in his steps. He stared unhappily and asked, What's in the box? The weather's getting cold now. You're still bringing iced food for the madam? He said as he reached out to grab it. I took a step back holding the box. Pretending to be flustered, I explained, This is a new rock sugar cake from Dong's. To keep the sugar from melting, they pack it in this box and freeze it in the ice cellar after making. It actually doesn't taste cold at all. Marquis Yong'an stepped closer. The madam doesn't like sweet food, Ning. The madam loves this. I'm taking it back to Fangfei Garden. What a troublemaking bastard. One of my hands was hidden in my sleeve, twirling a thin silver needle. I planned to wait until Marquis Yong'an turned around, stab it into his back, and knock him unconscious. Just then a teacup was thrown out of the room. It hit Marquis Yong'an right on the head. The madam appeared at the door with a cold face. Is your love just like the cake in the box in your hand? Because Ye Guining likes it. So you take all of it away from me and send every bit of it to her, right? While the two were confronting each other, I always felt the atmosphere was really weird. I couldn't help stealing a glance at Marquis Yong'an's face. He looked like he was furious because the madam had lost her temper and hit him, but at the corners of his eyes and brows, there was a faint hint of joy he couldn't hide. I'm such a glutton for punishment. Marquis Yong'an handed the box to the madam. He pursed his lips and said, Xiaoxi, this is the first time I've seen you this angry. You look so cute when you're jealous. You were so cold to me these past few days. I almost thought you didn't care about me anymore. I know I've hurt you a lot these days because of Ninger's matter. We've got plenty of time ahead of us. I'll make it up to you slowly. He'll find out very soon. They won't have any future together at all. The madam didn't say a single word. She glanced at me. I followed her into the room. She turned around and slammed the door shut. Marquis Youngan stood outside the door for a while, before he finally left. Before the madam lay down, I handed her a cup of tea mixed with painkillers. She shook her head. She turned down my kind offer again. She was still a little scared. When I reached out my hand, she blinked her eyes and started talking to me on her own. Let me tell you my story. Once I finish telling the story of my life as the Ye family's daughter and the Marquise's wife, it'll be like my life ends with this story too. I looked down at the madam's expression. She was smiling. You're curious, aren't you? Curious why we're all our parents' daughters? But I'm the only one who isn't loved. Curious why Chu Huaishu and Ye Guining were engaged. But he married me instead. After all, you'd even run over to listen to sparrows bickering outside the window. Yep, I heard every bit of it. So my nosy side is that obvious, huh? I laughed out loud. Well, since you've already figured that out, I won't put on an act anymore. I'm really curious about your story. The lady's story starts when she was 2 years old. When she was 2, her father traveled south to take an official position. Her mom was scared he'd take a mistress there, so she went with him. They left her at home to be raised by her grandmother. Her grandma hated that she was a girl and treated her coldly. Only maids and nannies kept her company on most days. When she grew old enough to understand things, she noticed other kids were doted on and protected by their parents. So she secretly asked her nanny where her own parents were. The nanny always comforted her, saying her parents would pick her up for family reunion during New Year. She waited year after year, until she turned 8. When her dad was transferred back, he brought home a 5-year-old little sister. She was distant and awkward with her parents, and they also had no affection for this daughter. They'd been separated from since she was little. They only doted on the little sister they'd raised by their side. The first Lantern Festival after the sister came to the capital, her parents used the excuse that the sister had never seen the capital's lantern fair to leave her at home, and only took the little sister out to have fun. Who knew the lantern fair was super crowded and chaotic? So the 5-year-old sister got lost. Her parents searched desperately for half a year, but still got no news about her. So they went to a fortune teller for a divination, who said if the elder sister changed her name to something related to the little sister, Qingyuan County would send the little sister back on its own. So right after she lost her little sister, she lost her own name too. It was changed from Yeshu to Yesinshu. Yeshu was originally her little sister's name. Every time she was happy growing up, her parents would nag next to her about the lost little sister, saying, "You get to live a good life at home. Poor my Shuer, who knows where she's suffering right now. Your little sister still hasn't been found. How can you be this happy? How can you live a good life with a clear conscience? Everything you wear and own should have been your sister's." She was fair and cute since she was little. All these clothes and daily items would look even better on her. These cruel accusations filled her little heart with guilt. She developed a habit of humbly pleasing her parents. Her father was in poor health. Her mom had frequent headaches and back pains that started during her postpartum recovery. To nurse her parents back to health, she even knelt in front of a doctor's door for 3 days to beg for the chance to study medicine under him. After she mastered the skill, she gave her parents acupuncture and massages with her own hands every month, and prepared prescriptions for medicinal baths. Thanks to her constant efforts to please them, her parents gradually grew closer to her. But this bit of closeness was completely taken back by her parents the moment Ye Guining was found. They took every bit of that warmth back entirely. They saw her as an enemy to their beloved daughter. They even schemed against her until she lost her own child. The 2 years her parents traveled south of the Yangtze River was exactly when the Marquis of Yong'an was taken by his parents to attend his grandmother's funeral thousands of miles away and observe the mourning period. The two families formed a bond back then. The Marquis of Yong'an took her father as his teacher to study literature and calligraphy under him. It just so happened that her mother gave birth to her little sister around that time, so they arranged a child marriage between the two kids. After the little sister went missing, the Marquis of Yong'an still visited their house often to see Master Ye, his first teacher. They got to know each other well after seeing each other so often. The Marquis of Yong'an was only 2 months older than her. When she first started having crushes, the lady secretly fell for this young man, who always brought her candies and folk trinkets. But she knew he was the one her little sister was engaged to, so she never showed her feelings for him. She even intentionally kept her distance and acted cold towards him. Later on, Master Ye took the initiative to say he didn't want to delay the Marquis's marriage and wanted to cancel the child engagement they had arranged. But the Marquis of Yongan rejected his proposal and promised firmly in front of both sets of parents that he was in love with her and wanted to fulfill the marriage engagement with the Ye family by marrying her. So when she was 16 years old, she married the man she loved but never dared to hope for. He even promised he would only have her for his whole life. She was so happy she felt like she was in a dream. But this dream only lasted 4 short years. 4 years later, the missing little sister was found. The husband who promised her a lifetime together slept with her sister and completely changed his attitude after that night. He didn't care that she had a miscarriage from shock, and while she was still recovering post-miscarriage, he said outright that he had to take responsibility for the sister and wanted to marry her as a secondary wife of equal status. She cried almost every single day during her recovery period. The husband who used to treat her so lovingly said that I was pretending to be pitiful, as a trick to stop the sister from marrying into the family. Everyone said I stole the sister's rightful place, and that not divorcing me right now was already the Marquis showing mercy for our past affection. Everyone was pushing me to back down and compromise, asking me to happily watch the man I loved deeply marry another woman. In utter despair, that was how I ended up walking into the Dianzhuang building. The tip of the needle I pierced into the lady's skin. It was coated with sedative meds. The lady rambled on, then passed out unconsciously. I took out a small bell, shook it gently to wake the goo worm hidden under the lady's skin. I pulled back the goo silk stuck to her skin. I slowly lifted the face mask I'd seen every day for 5 straight days. Without even flinching, I put on the old face of a deceased friend stored in the icebox for years. The GU worm did its job perfectly, adjusting to fit perfectly onto my bones and flesh. Until midnight hit, a shadow snuck into the manor silently, dropped the female corpse he was carrying in front of me. I pointed at the sleeping lady on the bed and said to him, "Take her and the bag next to her away together. Hide them in my room at Dianzhuang building for 2 days. Once Xiaogu comes out, you go there personally, escort her to Aunt Zhao's house in Huai City." I found the kerosene hidden under the lady's bed. I poured it all over the room, then threw in a fire tinder. The second the flames swallowed the whole room, I leaped up and jumped far away, hiding myself in the tree. The maids had already been sent back to the servant quarters. By the time people in the Marquis Manor noticed the fire, half of the lady's room had already burned down. I saw Marquis Yonggan running over in a panic, screaming the lady's name like he was losing his mind. I saw the suicide note the lady left in the yard beforehand float to Marquis Yonggan's feet with the wind. He picked it up with trembling hands. "I bid you farewell with my life today. All debts for raising me are paid off. All love and affection are gone. From now on, whether in heaven or hell, I only wish to never see you again." I saw the fake second Miss Ye holding on to Marquis Yonggan, who was trying to rush into the fire, only to be pushed hard to the ground by him. After the manor people put out the fire, they carried out a charred corpse. Marquis Yonggan let out a pained cry from his throat. He knelt on the ground almost crazily, sobbing loudly. "Ah, Xiaoshi, it's all my fault. I won't take a second wife anymore. Come back, okay? I only want you. I'll only ever want you for the rest of my life." Humans are such idiots by nature. They only know to cherish something after they lose it. I let out a scoff. I had no interest in watching this farce any longer. I covered my face, slipped into the night, and left. I never expected that I'd see Marquis Yonggan again half a year later. I was just outside, taking a bouquet from a little beggar selling flowers. By the time I smelled the strange scent, it was too late. The sleeping incense got into my lungs. My eyes went black immediately, and I fell to the ground. When I woke up, I was in a dark prison cell. Marquis Yonggan was sitting right behind a door. I shook, the chains tying my hands and feet to the wall. I was a bit surprised. Where was this? "Why did you catch me?" I was actually really surprised that Marquis Yonggan could track me down. Turns out he wasn't the lewd idiot I thought he was. Marquis Yonggan's gloomy gaze fell on me, full of obvious killing intent. "Master of Dianzhuang building? Bai Feiyan, you destroyed my wife. I can spare your life today." I wasn't panicking at all. and sneered, "Isn't your wife in your manor? I even went to your wedding ceremony. It was just a month ago." "Your little wife?" Looked like she was already 4 months pregnant back then. The day the lady faked her death and escaped. Marquis Youngan's heartbroken, regretful look was still fresh in my memory. I thought he'd at least stay single for a year or so for her. Who knew only 2 months later he'd already knocked up that second Miss Gia. A disgusting man who can't keep it in his pants has the nerve to keep pestering the lady. Marquis Youngan retorted, "I know Xiao Shu didn't want me to take a second wife, so Ninger only got the status of a noble concubine when she entered the manor. As long as she's willing to come back, I'll forgive her for teaming up with you to trick me. She'll still be the only wife of me, Chu Huaishu." I glanced at him with clear disgust. "You disgusting, unfaithful man. Is being your wife some kind of great honor?" Marquis Youngan gritted his teeth and said, "Bai Feiyan, I'm not here to bicker with you. If you don't tell me where Xiao Shu is today, I'll make you experience all the tortures that are only available in Dali Temple Prison." After saying that, Marquis Youngan picked up a small crossbow and pressed it lightly. 2 arrows shot into my shoulders like shooting stars. Sharp pain from the arrows piercing through my flesh hit me instantly. The arrows must have been poisoned. It felt like thousands of tiny bugs were biting the wound. "This is just a small lesson for you. If you still don't talk, next time you'll get more than just 2 arrows." I stared at Marquis Youngan's gloomy face. I was also boiling with murderous intent. From the moment folks at Dianzhuang Tower found I was in danger, to tracking down where I was locked up, it was expected to take 2 full days. I had to find a way to stall this lunatic for 2 days first. I put on a pained look and sucked in a sharp breath. I said to Marquis Youngan, "You managed to find me, so you must have looked into Dianzhuang Tower, right? Our tower has rules. We only take client orders. We never pry into clients' personal affairs. As for where your wife went, all I know is she headed southwest. She mentioned before she wanted to see the steep mountain ridges there. She told me that by accident during a casual chat. Marquis Youngan spent 2 years studying in Shu when he was young. He and his wife had promised to visit Shu together when they got the chance." After hearing what I said, Marquis Youngan obviously remembered too. This unfulfilled promise of his. He was silent for a moment, then called for his subordinates. "Send men to Shu to investigate. Go to Shu right now and dig up everything that happened back then." He threatened me coldly. "I'm sure you know, Tower Master, I have 0 patience for you. If we can't find any trace of my wife in Shu, so I will personally cut off your flesh piece by piece." Marquis Youngan flicked his sleeve and left. The candles in the dark cell went out right after. I was locked up in total darkness for 2 days, with no food or water the entire time. I was so hungry my whole body went weak, and my head was spinning. When I heard the cell door unlock, I dazedly thought it was people from the tower coming to save me, until I heard the messy, unsteady footsteps of the people coming. I realized they weren't here to rescue me. A sweet scent drifted past my nose. Click! A fire striker lit up right in front of my face. I saw Miss Jia Yer, her pretty, delicate face. I wasn't wearing a disguise on my face. Miss Jia Yer recognized me too. When her curious gaze fell on my face, there was fear and panic in her eyes. "I heard Huaishu caught someone from Dianzhuang Tower. Turns out the Tower Master is you? Did you tell him anything about me?" This woman was probably here to silence me today. I tried to explain, "Miss Ye, Dianzhuang Tower has rules. We never disclose client information to outsiders. I never said a single thing about you, not to Marquis Youngan at all." The woman in front of me obviously didn't buy a word of it. There was a cruel glint in her eyes. She looked at me and said sinisterly, "Only dead people can keep secrets forever. Sorry, Tower Master. I worked so hard to become a noble lady, so hard to be the Marquis's only woman. I can't let my current wealthy, comfortable life have even the slightest chance of being ruined." A cold glint flashed in her hand. A sharp dagger plunged straight into my chest with a squelch. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept past. I immediately called out for help. The person who came twisted their blade. The hilt of the knife hit the fake Miss Ye on the back of her head, knocking her out cold on the ground. I breathed a sigh of relief, finally letting go of the pain I was holding back. I yelped in pain, while calling out to A Yuan, "Hurry up and cut these chains off me, and put some medicine on my wound." A Yuan silently treated my wound, then stuffed a detox and energy-boosting pill into my mouth. Only when he saw color return to my face did he ask why. He was blaming me for ditching the people who were secretly protecting me and going out alone. I curled my lip. I just wanted to have 2 days of fun with no restrictions. Who knew that Marky Yongun was actually that capable and could track me down? Those two are such a perfect match. One's ruthless, the other's venomous. I tied up Miss Jia and threw her in the corner, then cuffed her hands and feet with iron chains, and waited for Marquis Yongun to arrive. They gave me quite the unexpected adventure, so I have to give one back to them too. That evening, Marquis Yongun came rushing over, dressed all in black. This time he didn't interrogate me through the cell door. He walked straight into the cell as soon as he arrived, and grabbed me by the neck. You dared to lie to me? You're really looking for death, aren't you? It seemed he hadn't found any trace of his wife, which drove him completely mad. His eyes were all bloodshot. He drew the sword from his waist, ready to slice the flesh off my shoulder. I grinned, broke free of the chains on my body, and shot silver needles straight at Marquis Yongun's chest. He wasn't prepared for me to fight back. He was drugged instantly and collapsed limply to the ground. I yelled towards the roof, "A UN! Drag that woman over here. I'm really curious. Lord Yongun dotes on this beauty so much. If he finds out her real identity, how will he feel about it?" Yuan didn't say a single word. He walked to the corner and carried Ye Guining over, and dropped her at Lord Yongun's feet. Lord Yongun was drugged, too weak to struggle at all. He just glowered at me and snarled, "Leave her alone! I'm the one who kidnapped you. I'm the one who wanted to kill you. Take it out on me if you have a problem." I shook my head, pointed at the bloodstain on my chest and said, "This stab wound is from your precious concubine. If my men hadn't arrived just in time, her stab wouldn't have been so shallow. I would have been killed and silenced by her by now." Lord Yongun didn't buy it at all. Ninger has always been soft and timid. If you hadn't kidnapped her here, she wouldn't even dare to step into this dark room. The fake second miss was so scared she could only beg through sobs. "Save me, my lord. I'm still carrying our child." I watched the beauty cry her eyes out and saw Lord Yongun's face twist with obvious heartache. I couldn't help clapping to praise her. That's such amazing acting skills. This is exactly how you tricked Lord Yongun into abandoning his first wife for you, breaking all vows and partying with you every night. No wonder you were the famous peony from Willowbank. You're really good at playing with men, huh? Peony's cries turned sharp and shrill immediately. "Shut up, my lord, this woman is making up lies to frame me. Don't believe a single word she says." Lord Yongun's face darkened heavily and stared daggers at me. "What do you mean by that?" I pressed my foot against Peony's neck, forcing her to bow her head towards Lord Yongun. I held up the lamp and leaned down, and found a faint red dot under Peony's ear. I pointed it out to Lord Yongun. "You must have looked into it before, my lord. When our Dianzhuang house does face swaps for people, the only trace left is this wound under the ear where the goo worm entered and exited. Take a good look at the woman in front of you. She is not the real second Miss at all. She only wears the second Miss's face." Lord Yongun's pupils constricted slightly. He stared straight at Peony and asked if what I said was true. "Who on earth are you?" Peony couldn't hide the panic on her face, but she still tried to tough it out. "My lord, I am Ye Guining. I'm your wife, the mother of your child. Don't listen to this outsider stirring up trouble." I clicked my tongue and said to Peony, "Relationships are built on mutual honesty, you know. Since you refuse to tell the truth, I'll speak for you then." I turned to face Lord Yongun and spoke slowly. She used to be the most famous courtesan at Huayue House in Jiangnan. When she got older, she became the madam of the house. Don't be fooled by her 17-year-old angelic face. She's actually 32 years old already. That's a full 12 years older than you." Lord Yongun's expression changed several times. He probably couldn't believe that. He'd slept with an aging brothel woman. The woman immediately denied it and said, "No way! Ninger is innocent and naive. She doesn't act like a woman in her 30s at all." I sneered and asked Lord Yongun, "Is that true or not? Can't you tell for yourself, my lord? If she's really a 17-year-old innocent unmarried girl, how could she charm you so completely? You don't actually think she's naturally gifted at this, do you? That's just skills she picked up after years. Working in the pleasure quarters. I heard Lord Yong'an is a clean freak. After hearing what I said, Lord Yong'an imagined the woman beside him, having been with countless lowly men before. Sure enough, he looked like he was about to throw up, and glared at Peony with eyes full of rage. Peony was still shaking her head, denying he's lying. Don't believe him, my lord. Look at me. I'm the real Yi family daughter, no fakes at all. Look at my face. Didn't you say that I'm as innocent as the girl you remembered from childhood? Lord Yong'an's face was dark with anger, and looked away from her gaze. Now that I've said everything I needed to, I grabbed a Yuan sword hilt and broke 2 of Lord Yong'an's fingers with it. This is payback for the 2 arrows you shot me with. As for you, Peony, I broke our deal and revealed your swapped face identity. So that cancels out the stab wound you gave me. Oh, right, one more thing. The real second Miss Ye's corpse is still kept at our Dianrong house in Jiangnan. If you, Lord Yong'an, or those 2 old fools from the Ye family want to claim her, prepare 100 taels of gold first. Then we'll head back to Dianzhuang house. Ah Yuan lowered her eyes, looking clearly annoyed. They hurt you. Why didn't you just kill them? I smiled and patted Ah Yuan's head. Sometimes living is way more painful than dying. Besides, Peony Hua might not even survive the furious Marquise of Yong'an. With the clues I provided, the Marquise of Yong'an quickly found out Peony Hua's real identity. The Ye couple also learned that for the sake of a fake daughter, they hurt their own biological daughter so badly that she chose to die in the fire just to cut ties with them forever. I was inside the building, receiving the Ye couple who came with 100 taels of gold. Both of them looked extremely haggard and totally distracted. Old Mrs. Ye's eyes were so red and swollen from crying. Building master, was my daughter really killed by that vicious woman from the Marquis Manor? Can you please take me to see her? I unceremoniously took half of the 100 taels of gold. Of course you can. This is the deposit. If you confirm that the body is indeed your missing second daughter, I will take the remaining half. When we set off for Jiangnan with the old couple, the Marquis of Yong'an came too. He rode a horse following behind our carriage. I heard he was stripped of his official post by the emperor these days, because as the Imperial Guard commander, he secretly deployed Imperial Guards to catch me and find Madame's whereabouts. Without permission, on the way, the Marquis of Yong'an rode up to my carriage and asked in a low voice what my relationship with the emperor was. I smiled disdainfully and replied, "It's none of your business. I'm someone you can't afford to mess with anyway. You've lost your official post now, with only an empty title left, so you can't mess with me even more." Of course I won't tell him. The current emperor is my biological father. If I didn't have such a strong backer, the Dianzhuang building wouldn't have run so steadily under my management. My mom used to be as gentle as Madame, with a soft and obedient personality. She fell in love with my dad when they were young, pledged to marry each other privately, and had me. Later, that bastard emperor ascended the throne and took many new concubines into his harem. My mom couldn't stand sharing her husband with others. Heartbroken, she made up her mind to leave and never looked back till she died. I guess I always soften up when it comes to Madame, partly because she has the shadow of my mom in her. They are both willing to give everything when they love someone, and can leave firmly without looking back when it's time to end the relationship. We traveled for 2 months, and arrived at the Dianzhuang building in Jiangnan. I personally brought the Marquis of Yong'an and the Ye couple to identify the body. The building assigned a maid to wait on me. When we went to the ice room to open the coffin, the maid stepped in front of me and reached out to push the coffin lid open for me. Since her face was destroyed, I covered second Miss Ye's face with a layer of white veil. Old Mrs. Ye stepped forward and threw herself beside the body. She lifted the clothes on the body. There was a small mole on the shoulder, a scald mark on the leg, and on the ankle, there was a scar left by a neighbor's dog bite when she was little. This is my daughter I've been looking for 12 years. That woman from the Marquis Manor, don't think I'll let her off just because she committed suicide to escape punishment. For the debt of her killing my daughter, I will grind her ashes to dust. Master Ye's legs went weak and collapsed to the ground. His face was full of blank, overwhelming grief. My girl, Daddy is too late. Don't be scared. Mom and Dad will take you home now. Let's go home. The Marquis of Yong'an watched silently all the time, until the Ye couple wiped their tears and tried to take second Miss Ye's body away. He stepped forward and blocked my way. Is my wife in Jiangnan? I have offended you a lot before, Master Bai. I'm willing to cut off one arm to apologize to you. I just beg you to tell me where my wife is. When the Ye couple heard the Marquis of Yongan mention Madam, they both turned to look at me. A glimmer of hope appeared in old Mrs. Yu's eyes. She looked at me hesitantly and asked, Master Bai, is our Xueshu staying with you? We were bad parents and made her suffer a lot before. These days when she's not around, her dad and I keep having health problems. Only now did we realize all the things she did to take care of our health all these years. She is such a filial good kid. It's all our fault as parents, humph. Master Ye also looked over with red eyes. After losing a fake daughter and learning the death news of their real second daughter, they finally remembered all the good things Madam did. I looked at the Ye couple and asked, even if she was still alive, what would change? You ruined her marriage, killed her child. Do you still expect her to come back without any hard feelings? And keep being the dutiful daughter at your feet? The two of them were questioned by me till tears streamed down their old faces. They couldn't say a single word. After a long while, Master Ye sighed. Forget it. We don't have the face to see her again anyway. He knows she's living a good life somewhere in the world. And that's enough. Madame Ye reached out and took off the jade bracelet on her wrist, the hair ornaments on her head, as well as her personal jade pendant one by one. She stuffed them all into my hand. She begged, if you ever see our Zunru building master, please help pass these things to her. From now on, I only wish her an easy and happy life. I glanced out of the corner of my eye at the maid next to me. Her face was completely expressionless. Her eyes were as calm as if she was looking at a stranger. So I put my hands behind my back, stepped back one step. Dianzhuang Building doesn't offer any delivery services for personal items. Please take your things back, madam. The Ye couple looked extremely disappointed. They hunched over and walked away slowly with staggering steps. The Marquis of Yongan still stood rooted to the spot. He looked at me and said firmly, you must know where Xiaoshi is. I'm begging you, tell me please. I know I broke her heart. At least give me a chance to apologize to her face to face. I apologize to you for my offense last time. If that's still not enough, after I meet Xiaoshi one last time, if you want my life, Building Master Bai, I'll give it to you, no questions asked. I looked at the obsession and pleading on the Marquis of Yongan's face. And I just thought how ridiculous this man was. What are you even pretending for? When she was right by your side, you left her behind and messed around with other women. Not long after she died, you even had the mind to have kids with someone else. Now you say you're willing to trade your life for a piece of news? That makes me sick just hearing it. You're so hypocritical. If you're that desperate to find her, then why don't you just skip going back to the capital and stop being the privileged marquis you are? Just put on plain clothes and blend into the crowd. Travel every corner of the world to look for her. If you love her that much, if she's right in front of you, you will definitely recognize her at first glance, right? The Marquis of Yongan closed his eyes, and 2 lines of tears rolled down his face full of regret. He finally turned around and left, until only our own people were left in the building. The maid next to me turned to look at me. Long time no see. Miss Bai, I looked at the face of this former good friend of mine, with a smile I hadn't seen in many years on it. Long time no see. I can't call you madam anymore now, right? Zunru or Xiaoshi? Which one is your name now? The Ye couple called her Zunru. The Marquis of Yongan called her Xiaoshi. I wonder which one she prefers herself. Madam shook her head gently. Neither of those are my name. Now I practice medicine outside with my mother. I named myself Zhao Chang'an. All the patients call me Anyang. When I heard she picked a name for herself, I asked her, Aunt Zhao, did she realize you're not her real daughter? Madam nodded and said, even though we have the same face, the first time she saw me, Mother knew I wasn't the old Miss Zhao. I told her my whole story. She felt bad for me and took me as her goddaughter. Today, I specially arranged for her to meet the Ye couple and the Marquis of Yongan. Now her tone is calm when talking about the past, and her gaze is open and calm. It's like those people's regret and tears didn't leave a single trace in her heart. I told Zhao Chang'an about Hua Mudan's matter, and said a bit embarrassedly, it's okay if you want to blame me for this. If I hadn't changed her face for her, she wouldn't have been taken back by the Ye family and wouldn't have had the chance to take away your parents and husband. Zhao Chang'an shook her head slightly. My parents never loved me. It's the same whether I have a sister or not. As for Chu Huaishu, he broke his vow to me so easily. Even if Ye Guishan hadn't shown up, there would have been someone else sooner or later. Anyway, the old Ye Shunru is dead. She will never forgive the harm they caused her. The past is sealed away in the old days. The Zhao Chang'an who's alive now only sees them as strangers. I laughed. It looks like Zhao Chang'an has truly let go of the past. Well then, Anyang, I wish you a long, peaceful, and happy life forever.